Story 1. Not a super juicy one, but I wanted to write it out nonetheless. I've never been a manager before, but I have my bachelor's degree in management. I just started at a new restaurant. I've come from several corporate companies, but this place was a second store of a mom and pop company. I've always been a server, but I was hired as a bartender important for later. In the interview, the two owners told me they were looking to make the place more professional and turn some things around. I got hired on the spot to come in the next day. When I arrived, no one knew anything. I wasn't on the schedule. My trainer was late. There wasn't a manager, and the owners were nowhere to be found. When I actually started working, I was just thrown in, expected to make drinks, take orders, know the kitchen, everything. No big deal. I jumped in and did what I had to do. Some highlights: the staff were drinking alcoholic beverages on the job, not measuring any liquor, giving out free drinks, not checking IDs, and closing the restaurant 2 hours early, etc. The next day, the only server scheduled for the dinner shift was running late. The morning server asked me to fill in until he got there, so I ended up covering the entire floor, about 10 tables, by myself on my second day in training. The owners told me over the phone how awesome I was for jumping in and covering this, and that I was exactly what they needed to fix the restaurant. On day 3, they called me into the office to check in and see how everything was going. I told them that I was confused and needed recipes for the drinks since only one bartender knew any recipes. They asked me what I'd noticed was wrong, and I told them what the other bartenders were doing that wasn't supposed to happen. I honestly told them about the lack of controls, the lack of recipe cards, and the early closing. They blamed it all on the bartenders and thanked me. They told me that I needed to keep an eye out and stay in touch with what was going wrong in the bar. Cue malicious compliance. I told them straight up that the problem was the lack of management. If they wanted recipe cards, training procedures, or drink standards, they either needed to do it themselves or pay a bartender manager's wages to do it. It wasn't the bartender's fault that these things were wrong. They needed to step up. After a long, unproductive, unprofessional conversation, the owner told me to get out of his restaurant right now and never come back. So I did, and I took the other two bartenders on shift with me, leaving them with no one in the restaurant to serve. They wanted to tell me that I'm too ignorant about running a restaurant, but they get to figure out how to run their own restaurant now. Edit. This place charges $24 for chicken Alfredo and $14 for a margarita with basic tequila. I saw so many $200 tickets. Not a cheap place. Story 2. I was working at Toys for Tots in the Washington, D.C. area, which is a program the Marine Corps runs every year to gather toys and gifts and distribute them to kids whose Christmas tree would likely disappoint Charlie Brown. Sexist or not, they seem to pick those of us who have the Marine look, in the casting sense. Tall, masculine, etc. Or, on the ladies' side, that peculiar blend of, I'll beat you up with one hand while doing my eyeliner with the other. It's as much marketing as anything, especially in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area. Point being, we're a bunch of tall, very fit folks out there in dress blues, smiling and coaxing toys out of people who could have probably saved Toys R Us with petty stock earnings. We look nothing like waitstaff. Myself, 6 feet 1 inch, 210 pounds, and my fellow Marine, 5 feet 4 inches, probably 135 pounds, were assigned to an event at the Smithsonian. Somehow the Corps had managed to get a display and a few donation bins put up at a black tie, invitation-only shindig surrounding the display of the Hope Diamond and a bunch of other large hunks of carbon. Personally, I don't understand the obsession with it. It's a large shiny rock. No one is wearing it. It serves no scientific purpose, and it just sits there, so you can look at it, or something. I feel more satisfaction looking at an exceptionally big creation the night after Taco Tuesday. At least I made it myself, often with significant effort, and no small amount of regret or self-loathing to provide fuel for the push. Anyway, we're smiling our pearly whites while the various movers and doers shake our hands, toys on display, posing for the cameras so their constituents, stockholders, etc., can see how kind-hearted they are. The sick thing is how many don't even donate. They just get a photo in front of the pile of toys, sans the generosity, pretty much par for the course. The initial wave of donations passes as the event gets down to business. Drinks are passed out, and they start in with the hors d'oeuvres. We're standing there surreptitiously munching and trying not to get those white gloves dirty, when this lady, best described as a chubby mixed-race female Steve Buscemi, comes toddling up in a dress and waistcoat thing that looked like it was screaming for mercy from the Button Ferry. Fat Steve. Hey, you too. I'm dry here. Let's get snappy with a refill. Or something like that. We didn't realize she was talking to us, so I only half paid attention. After a second of us not replying, she continued shouting, Hey, I know you hear me. Get in gear. Flirting time is over. At this point, we realized she meant us. I looked over at Pocket, my fellow Marine's nickname. She looked at me. We looked at the lady. It took a second, okay? Finally, I spoke. Me. Can I help you, ma'am? About time. I need a refill. And while you're at it, get me some of those some random munchy things. They stopped bringing them out a few minutes ago. You guys really? Pocket. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but we don't work here. We're just here with the toys. I don't care what you think. Get in gear or I'll have your job. I'll not be talked to by someone like you. She proceeded to toss her empty-ish glass at Pocket, who got some leftover drips on her blues but caught it out of reflex. I could see the thunderclouds gathering. A stain like that likely meant she was looking at a new blues coat, which runs a few $100s. Probably a new ribbon setup too. Pocket is Puerto Rican and has the temper to match, so I tried to head the lady off. Me? Ma'am, we're not waitstaff. We're just... I don't want to hear your excuses. Do you know who my husband is? She proceeded to put her finger right under my nose and continue the tirade. Apparently, her husband was a Southern senator's main booster/campaign funder, so said Google, and would see to it I'd be sleeping under newspaper and etc. After about 10 odd seconds of this, we started to draw stairs, and some of the staff were starting to head our way. However much I wanted to put this woman in a compliance hold, I could pretty well visualize the news article if a male Marine laid hands on a woman in front of all those people, especially a politically connected one. I was sort of at a loss. Fortunately, for me, I didn't have to make that choice. Pocket made it for me. Ma'am, you need to calm down. Please take your glass and... She held out the woman's glass to her as she said this. The woman immediately switched her wrath from me to Pocket and slapped the glass out of Pocket's hands. I could see Pocket's control wavering, but there wasn't anything for it. Fat Steve bored right in. The critical mistake was to start jabbing Pocket with her finger, right in the chest, with each word. You shut your mouth. I cringed visibly at that second to last word because, yeah, I knew exactly what was about to happen. And it did. It's called the You'd Got 'em in Judo, basically a standing arm lock. And Pocket was a 2-tab black belt. Pocket snatched her arm up, locked her out, and slammed her face straight into the wall next to us. Blood, broken nose, drywall dust, the whole bit. Pocket didn't even say anything, just that grim teeth smile that says, I'm going to mess you up so hard your grandkids will be born with my handprints on their soul. It was awesome and a little hot, to be honest. I, being both the senior Marine and somewhat cooler of temperament, carefully pulled Pocket back. I dare say it was akin to handling a small but very dangerous animal. Fat Steve kind of slid to the floor, actually much quieter now that she was trying to aspirate a mixture of blood and gypsum. Security finally showed up to help, which resulted in them hauling the woman away and taking us to a separate room, where we gave our version of things. Security recordings were reviewed, of which there were many, with the fancy rocks everywhere. Pocket wanted to press assault charges. I called the head office to let them know what happened. They sent a van to pick us toys up. Funny enough, it never seemed to make it to the news. I think that, more than anything, saved Pocket. Upon coming back to the main event area to load the toys and take down the display, we were given a wide berth by many of the upper crusties. I feel compelled to mention the notable exception. This one old lady who came up and asked if she could give Pocket a hug, of all things. Just kind of gave her that grandma-style hug, patted her on the back, and took her hands. You know, in my younger years, I would have stomped that woman flat. Wonderfully done, dear. And then wandered off to rejoin the party. It was adorable. Story 3. This is a little story about the time a table ran out on me after running up a huge bill. Anyway, in my youth, my profession of choice was serving at a local Irish pub. Had a lot of good times and some great stories, including one where some dude straight up blew up our bathroom. No, seriously, a guy blew up the entire toilet with explosive powder. Getting back to our story, the scene is a very crowded bar. 2 floors and both have an outside section all packed. I was working the downstairs patio, along with a few bar tables inside. After grabbing some drinks for a table outside, I noticed another had sat down in my section. There were 5 women, all very attractive. At first, they seemed really nice, very complimentary, and they were all ordering top shelf. This is good. Maybe I'll get a good tip out of them. The night goes on. I notice one of them wandering around inside for a minute before going back out. No big deal. I did just drop off their check. Maybe she was getting out some cash. Nope. I head outside, and they are gone. Just absolutely nowhere to be seen. No way. They ran up a nearly $200 bill. And what was inside? A measly $10. Now, anyone who works in restaurants in America knows that some employers could be jerks and make you pay out of pocket if this happens to you. Total jerk move. My managers were fantastic people, though, and pretty much comped most of it. But still, I wasn't going to let this slide. I went into full-blown detective mode. As noted above, when I noticed one of the girls lingering inside, she briefly had talked to a table. Sitting there was a group of middle-aged people who were so amazing I'd love to give them a big hug right now if possible. I told them the story, and they actually offered to pay the bill. But not before one of the women noted that she actually had a short conversation with one of the Dine and Dashers. Oh yes, we got a lead. I was informed they were heading to the local club. Maybe I should have figured that by myself. They seemed the type, and there's only one in town. But whatever. I did decline their offer to pay it off as I would be getting what's mine from the culprits. Not some great people. The revenge. I informed my manager what happened, what information I gained, and what was about to be done. I grabbed a food runner named Bill. In pretty good shape, older dude, super guy in general. I was also 19 at the time, and he was an adult. His presence was very helpful. After that, I informed my tables I would be back, that one of my coworkers would take care of them, and off to the races. We walked over to the bar and explained the situation to the doorman. This guy was so stoked on helping. He, in turn, took us to the upstairs bouncers. Those bouncers looked at me, and one said with a booming voice, "The guys were so huge. All you gotta do is point them out. We have no tolerance for that kind of behavior." Can I just take a minute to express the pure joy and adrenaline that pumped through my veins when I walked through the doors and saw the whole group grinding together? Picture Leonidas stoutly raising his arm, pointing to the offenders, and confidently saying, "There they are." That's how I felt. It was glorious. They turned with a look of absolute horror before making a break for the door. The bouncers were majestic lions, while the drunk ladies were gazelles who spent maybe a little too much time at the watering hole. What followed was an epic walk of shame. They were ferried down 2 floors while people gawked and cheered before finally arriving outside. And who do I see there? It's Brad, the bike cop. I explained the situation but mentioned I didn't want to press charges as long as they paid. So while being detained, one of them handed me her credit card, and I walked back to the restaurant triumphantly. It is done. I have won. When I walked back, I guess word had spread, and I actually got an ovation after I hefted the credit card over my head. Absolutely brilliant. A top moment. I was on cloud 9 for a week after that. Anyway, I actually want to include a short follow-up. I was scheduled the next day to work, and who do I see but one of the women? She sees me and immediately apologizes. Apparently, they are all coworkers, and whenever they go out, they take turns handling the bill. She told me that she was under the impression that it was taken care of, and even noted that she left $10, even though she was assured I was already tipped well. Very, very apologetic. She was forgiven, stuff happens, and it was already dealt with. I also assured her she gave me a story for life. And sometimes those can be more valuable than any amount of money. Edit. Just answering a few questions and adding something. I didn't add any additional tip onto the card afterward. It wouldn't have been ethical. I was fine with getting my money back. I wouldn't be surprised if the girl who came back could have been lying by omission regarding being completely ignorant of the situation. But hey, it was something, so whatever. Story 4. This is how it starts. My girlfriend decides to move to New Jersey after graduation to start work. Being a poor graduate student at the time, she is looking to save money by sharing an apartment with a roommate. She hunts for a place on the Indian Craigslist and finds a 2-bed apartment posted by another girl. The rent is cheap, and the girl seems to be okay. She moves in. Soon, she realizes that this girl has a fiancé. Let's call him DF. DF works as a software engineer through a shady consulting firm. DF visits his girl every weekend and consummately displays his obnoxious self. He hoards the only bathroom every night for 2 hours at a time, taking a beauty bath. Post his bath, DF proceeds to watch Indian TV at full volume late into the night. This happens every weekend. When I heard this, I asked my girlfriend to move out, but the rent is cheap, and she wants to avoid the hassle of searching for another place. Fast forward 3 months. DF is laid off from his job and moves into my girlfriend's shared apartment. Now, he hoards the bathroom twice a day for 2 hours each and blasts Indian TV at full volume all day. My girlfriend is super annoyed and brings this up with DF's fiancé. She wants my girlfriend to adjust for a while as she thinks DF will get a job soon and move out. She also promises to ask DF to tone down his obnoxious behavior. Nothing changes, and then my girlfriend starts receiving inappropriate emails from an unknown ID. She has seen her fair share of perverts and proceeds to block this email ID. But the emails keep coming from other alternate IDs with a certain message that says, "We can meet up without your boyfriend in Boston knowing." This creeps her out. Our relationship is new, and very few people know that we are together. She forwards me those emails to see if I can figure out who this pervert is. I immediately suspected DF as he was around when I helped her move into this place. To test my hypothesis, I visited her the next day and stayed with her for a couple of days. No emails. The next day, I pretended to leave and she got another email. Now, I was pretty sure this was DF, but had no hard evidence to confirm it was him. I needed to come up with a plan. I went through all his old emails, and there was one that was sent from a cellular device. Aha! I looked up the email details. Received from Xmailer, iPhone Mail 13F69. This made my case stronger. The IP address points to the same approximate location where my girlfriend stays. Also, DF has an iPhone. Still not 100% sure. I got an idea, and I asked my girlfriend to play along. I rented a hotel close to her place in case DF turned crazy. My girlfriend told her roommate that she had been receiving inappropriate emails from some unknown person and that she was going to approach the police. DF's face turned blue. He asked my girlfriend not to go to the police as they would not register a case without any indication of a real threat, like I did not know that. My girlfriend pretended to agree with him. The next day, my girlfriend told DF and his girl that she went to the police and they traced the IP of the sender. The emails are being sent from the home Wi-Fi network. DF is now panicking. He proceeded to convince his girl that it is super easy to hack into a home Wi-Fi network, and it could have been anybody. His girl bought the story. As they say, love is blind. Then the final bombshell. A few hours later, my girlfriend told DF and his girl that the police want her to come to the police station this evening. The police have identified the pervert who has been sending her the emails. She also told them that the police want her to press charges, and it will be a 2-year jail term at the minimum. DF is now in panic mode. My girlfriend could hear him pacing inside his room, yelling at his girl. He came out sobbing and confessed. He asked my girlfriend not to pursue charges and to ask the police to forget the whole thing. He was also willing to refund her rent for the last 6 months from his pocket. Meanwhile, I had already found her a new 1-bedroom apartment. She took the money and left. A few weeks later, DF got an anonymous email. There were no police all along. There will be if you get the slightest idea of retaliating. On the same day, my girlfriend got an email from DF's fiancé. It read, "Sorry for all the trouble. As you can imagine, I broke off my engagement with that pervert. Also, he had to return to India as he could not find a new job. Good riddance."